have anybody that's going to do the pledge? Okay. Then my daughter Emily is here, and she was among the first to lead the pledge as a student many years ago. Emily, in from Denver, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Yes.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good, young lady. I call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge for May 13, 2019. Roll call.
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Trustee Pavesa.
Here.
Trustee Snyder.
Here.
Trustee Matal. Trustee Model.
Here.
Mayor Grasso.
Here. Item 3, resident comments. Are there any comments from the residents? Any resident wish to be heard at this time? Yes, Mr. Morton. Now, we are not going to have sign-up sheets, and so the clerk can keep the record straight. We need your full name, and if you want to give it, your address.
I'll try to comply. My name is Richard Morton, Lake Ridge Club, lived here since 1989. First off, I'd like to say congratulations, Mayor. I'm pleased that you're sitting on the dais. You have proven over the years to be an effective leader as our mayor. On August 21st, 2018, we learned we've been lab rats for 34 years with Sterigenics. Just 8 days later, you were seen in the audience, not running for mayor of Burr Ridge, but you were in the audience in Willowbrook trying to learn about the problems facing our community. On August 31st, in your position as DuPage councilman for this area, on September 1st, you signed a letter trying to seek Sterigenics to shut down. You have been leading in this effort since it became known to us. And you've remarked that protecting people is the essential duty of government. And I'm gratified to hear that. I think that is the #1 goal. And with your experience to this job, I think that Burr Ridge will do better than we've done in recent years, including, by the way, I notice your nameplate, Gary Grasso, Mayor. I presume that's recycled from your first term, saving us the money of a new nameplate. In any event, you brought innovative use of restricted hotel motel tax money and turned it into a branded bridge that brings attention and recognition to Burr Ridge. You participated and brought to us a 21st century police station that's going to serve us well in the decades to come. You were instrumental, and while you're complaining about the tenancy of the village center, you were instrumental in bringing that, and that is a very large sales tax generator, and we've become a restaurant destination. And so I look forward to the next 2 years, plus 4 years of your leadership. I had prepared several paragraphs that I'm going to avoid tonight.
Thank you.
Because I'm getting tired of talking about Sterigenics. But I do want to point out a tragedy that happened in Waukegan a week ago at AB Specialty Silica. And I don't know the chemicals in play at that disaster, but I do know that ethylene oxide is in the league of any chemical they were likely to have. And so the risk of explosion isn't a pipe dream. It isn't something that can't happen. It took 4 lives and damaged property and injured people. And as we're focusing on keeping Sterigenics shut down, it's more than just the health risks from inhaling the chemical that we need to be aware of. It's the physical harm in the event know there can be a problem. The last thing I'd like to say tonight, at the last Burr Ridge Environmental Quality Commission, there was a discussion about hiring a lobbyist, and that's on the agenda this evening. And I just, as a citizen, I hope that the village board will affirm hiring a lobbyist, because the time period to get legislation passed to help reduce the risk or eliminate the risk is rapidly closing, and we need all hands on deck in order to get either of the two bills that have any chance of passing passed, and I think a lobbyist is one way to accomplish that. So I hope all of the trustees will take that under advisement and vote in the affirmative tonight for hiring a lobbyist. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. Is there anyone else, any other resident that would like to address the board? Former Mayor Mickey Straub.
Mayor, trustees, I have to say it's a pleasure greeting you from this side of the dais. I want to make an announcement to the village about Armed Forces Day, but also like to congratulate all the trustees today and Mayor Grasso for winning the election, also for your accomplishments at the county board, and for running I think a very good race. And thank you. I knew when I resigned that you were going to run in the hopes that you're going to win, and I knew if you did win, I'd be very comfortable with handing over the reins. So congratulations. As you may or may not know, I have since been elected the chairman of the Veterans Memorial Committee. Hence the reason why you all have this nice little flyer on your chairs, so that you are duly notified, and I want all the residents to know. I invite everyone to the Armed Forces Day event this Saturday at 10 a.m. I'd also like to thank Janet Kowal, a very key person in the village, help doing all the operations and pulling this together. It's, of course, coordinated through the efforts of the Veterans Memorial Committee. It is a very special event. For all those of you who don't know, it actually was started by Harry Truman. It was named Harry Truman. It was Armed Forces Day in 1949. President Kennedy made it a national holiday. And it's very rare for villages to recognize this. So it's a very but it is a very special holiday. No one else in DuPage County that I know of holds an event like this. It is our biggest event, sponsored through the Veterans Memorial Committee. We have everything from a keynote speaker. We have a band, reveille. We have invocation. We have posting of the colors. Star Spangled Banner will be sung by our village administrator's wife, Jennifer Pollock. We have a salute to the armed forces. We have a flyover of World War II planes. It's a big deal. Mars brings a lot of treats, as well as the old Popcorn Palace, Double Good now. It is a very special event with band and a huge event. But I want to let everybody know and invite everybody to make sure they're there on Saturday at 10 a.m. and to make sure that everybody in the village knows that. And it's an honor to be of service. If I wanted to carve out one thing to spend my time on, it was to promote love for God and country. And this is the way I'm going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other residents wish to address the board? Okay, item 4, consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. 5 minutes. A, approval of regular board meeting of April 22, 2019. B, receive and file Plan Commission meeting of May 6, 2019. And C, receive and file Environmental Quality Commission meeting of May 9, 2019. Item 6, ordinances. B, approval of an ordinance approving a variation from section 6D7 of the Burr Ridge zoning ordinance to permit a front yard setback of 40 feet rather than the permitted 50 feet to accommodate a new single-family residential home in the R2A Residential District V04 2019 7875 Wolf Road, Mahalavic. 7, resolutions. B, adoption of a resolution proclaiming May 2019 as National Bicycle Month in the village of Burr Ridge. 8, consideration of a plan commission recommendation to approve an amendment to Plan Unit Development Ordinance A 8340999 to permit an accessory structure covering a swimming pool in the rear yard of a health club in the L1 Light Industrial District, Z05 2019 6901 Madison Street, 5 Seasons. D, consideration of Plan Commission recommendation to approve a text amendment to Section 10E of the Burr Ridge zoning ordinance to add, quote, private school, unquote, as a special use in the L1 Light Industrial District and a special use as per the amended Section 10E to permit a special use for a private school in the L1 Light Industrial District. Z06 2019 6880 North Frontage Road, Vine Academy. E, receive and file resignation letter of Assistant Finance Director Lynette Zarowski. I want to thank her for her service. F, approval of village administrator recommendation to reclassify Assistant Finance Director position from range 108A to range 110A and to fill said position. G, acknowledge resignation of part-time receptionist Susan Castro, and we thank her for her service. Approval of H, approval of village administrator recommendation to fill vacant part-time receptionist position. I, approval of recommendation to concur with award of a contract by IDOT for the Burr Ridge Parkway resurfacing project. J, approval of recommendation to concur with the award of a contract by IDOT for the County Line Road North Connection Sidewalk Project. K, approval of purchase of work orders and business license software modules from BSNA. L, approval of purchase of property and evidence management software system for cost of $8,890. M, approval of request from the Flag Creek Heritage Society for donation from Hotel Motel Tax Fund for the Robert Vial House Museum. And approval of request from the INM Canal National Heritage Corridor for donation from Hotel Motel Tax Fund for the village's 2019 annual dues. O, approval of request for raffle license for Gower PTO and hosting facility license for Burr Ridge Community Center for event on May 18, 2019. Excuse me. P, approval of vendor list dated May 13, 2019 for the fiscal year 2018 and 19 in the amount of $250,183.20 for all funds, plus $193,657.93 for payroll, for a grand total of $443,841.13, which includes special expenditures of $18,624 for tree pruning and removals by Winkler's Tree Service, and also $11,475 for emerald ash borer treatment by Kramer Tree Specialists, and $11,562.50 for planning services of the sports facility, and $10,375.50 for the water main repairs by Vion Construction. And Q, approval of vendor list dated May 13, 2019, fiscal year 2019 and 2020, in the amount of $138,054.09 for all funds, plus $190,572.33 for payroll, for a grand total of $328,626.42, which includes no special expenditures. So you're all testing my reading ability on the very first meeting, huh? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? 5A through C, 6B, 7B, 8C through Q.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Ordinances. 6A, approval of an ordinance amending the Burr Ridge Municipal Code by deleting Chapter 21 entitled Valet Operators. This was an item continued from the last board meeting, and does anybody want to speak on this first from the staff?
I'll introduce it. just as directed by the village board at your last meeting, the staff prepared this ordinance that would amend the municipal code to remove the recently added regulations for, in chapter 21 of the municipal code, entitled valet operators. I can answer any questions you may have, and Evan Walters, also present, who did the legwork on preparing this ordinance in response to your direction.
Anyone want to speak? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to postpone until the next meeting and we have all the trustees back. I think Anita's opinion would be important to hear on this subject. I know it matters to her.
Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of second. Anybody else? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to understand, I missed the meeting at the last meeting, but I understand that, Chief, you mentioned that there's not a public safety issue here, which was surprising to me. Maybe our definition of public safety is different. There's been multiple instances of fire lane violations, of cars parked in the street with flashers on, of cars parked outside of parking lots, and multiple accidents that have occurred in that parking lot where cars have backed into other cars, perhaps because they weren't parked properly or in the proper spot. And to me, that's a real issue of public safety. So I don't understand why we're not considering this a matter of public safety, and I don't understand why we're trying to vote to not go forward with regulating the valet. It seems like they use the public goodwill. The whole business operates in the street, in the public domain, and I think it's important that we have them properly regulated and that they're following the rules, and if they're not, we have recourse, because right now we have no recourse. And it's frustrating to me that as the first ordinance being considered under new Mayor Grasso is an ordinance that definitely benefits his son's business, his son being the worst offender in all those instances I mentioned. That's the valet business that's been ticketed and warned many times by the police. So I was curious why you don't think it's a public safety issue.
Good evening. I don't characterize it as a public safety issue. Public safety issue for law enforcement are crimes and disasters. What I have there, parking is a nuisance, and it's an ordinance violation, and that's how we enforce it under ordinance.
And then the fire lane is not a public safety issue. Enforcing the fire lane, you wouldn't consider that's a public safety issue.
No, it's an ordinance violation, and we only have authority to enforce that fire lane if there's a contractual agreement. If absent of a contractual agreement with the property owner, we can only go on that property and enforce handicap parking.
I understand. So it's been very difficult to enforce a fire lane over there. It's been very difficult to enforce the parking in the spaces. And to me, this is a simple ordinance to get that under control. And it seems frustrating that we want to go away from that.
Chief, am I right? Have there been a report of many accidents? I don't recall any accidents as such related to parking problem. Has there been a connection?
I apologize, I don't have data on accidents. We have had accidents in County Line Square. I know that for a fact. I can tell you in the last year, we've had 10 complaints of parking in County Line Square. We've issued 38 parking tickets, and those include fire lane violations, and 11 fire lane violations and 27 violations of, it could be parking on the lines, the new ordinance, or the new enforcement that was enacted there. So, but a total of 38 in the past year. I could get you the data on the accidents for a future meeting.
I wanted to clarify something for the public in terms of our regulations in County Line Square. This ordinance that's being considered does not impact or modify in any way our fire lane restrictions or the prohibition on parking outside of designated parking spaces. Those requirements remain in place and are enforceable by the village at this time, regardless of the outcome of this valet operators ordinance.
And tickets can still be given and have been given?
Yes.
Anyone else? Yes?
So I believe that this is adding to the bureaucracy of government. I don't believe that the village should be involved in the valet business. I think it increases our liability and exposes the village by causing these people to obtain a license. And what type of qualifications are we gonna ask of these valet companies in order to get a license? Is it just pay a fee, or we're gonna do some background check on them, or what's the process? I think it just adds to our bureaucracy, and I believe it's an ordinance that should be rescinded.
Yes, trustee Francis.
Question, Chief. When was the agreement with County Line Square owners put back in force, allowing you to issue tickets?
It was renewed in some later 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a late summer, I believe, maybe July or August 2018.
So since then, you've issued 38 tickets.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
My own unscientific survey, I've noticed an improvement in the parking situation over County Line Square as a result. My wife was a victim of an accident in County Line Square, but it wasn't because of illegally parked cars or valet cars. It was just one person in a striped parking space backing into another person. It wasn't a result of any improperly parked vehicles or the result, nor would a valet service have prevented that accident. So I'm sure those occur a lot. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Al.
When this first came up, I had mixed emotions on it, and the more I thought about it and had several calls from residents, my feeling on this is that the valet people that handle the cars have to have some kind of a overseer, and I believe that should be the restaurants. I don't believe a permit or for the valet is important. I think it's a lot easier for us to talk to the restaurants and put pressure on them to make sure that the valet operator corresponds with all our regulations. And that's the reason, you know, I'm voting for the approval of the not having the valet permit.
Anybody else on the board? Any members in the audience who would like to address this topic? I have a few comments. I do oppose this. I opposed it from the beginning. This ordinance was so broad that it would impact residences that would have holiday parties who want valet. They would have to come through the staff and get all the way up to the board for us to put on the agenda a valet plan for a party. It would require businesses, Loyola, any of the hotels that have weddings, any of the major companies in town that want to have a party for any event they wish to celebrate, to put together a valet plan, to go to the staff, to then be approved by the board. There is no, I did some research on my own, there is no other village that I've been able to find, not that I did a deep study, but I've been told there's only 9 communities in all of the Chicagoland area that have valet ordinances. None of them get into regulating what the valet does or doesn't do. They require maybe certain designated areas that can be used for valet. In one community, it requires valet parking during the holiday season, but it doesn't tell the restaurants or the valet company how to do it and how to staff it, which is what this ordinance would do. This ordinance would generate at most $600 a year in permit fees, and the staff would be spending much more time than that trying to police this, and our police department would literally be spending extra hours trying to enforce this. What the ordinance did do was allow for ticketing. And we did get that ability in the last few months, finally, with the help of staff. Mr. Garber agreed to allow the police to come on the premises at County Line Square and ticket any illegally parked cars, and for that matter, any illegally parked cars by the valet. So we now have the very remedy that was going to be allowed under the ordinance within our police department authority, and you can see from Chief Madden's report that it's been effective and his officers are doing their job in that regard. And this overall is an intrusion of government, and I am, like many people, board knows nothing about the valet business. This staff knows nothing about the valet business. And we are the last persons that should be telling restaurants, businesses, the village center, valet companies, how to run their businesses. That is not what government does. So I oppose this at all levels. Yes, my son Michael has a valet business in Burr Ridge. Everybody knows that. He's had it since 2008. He's not been a problem, except that a couple of trustees want to make it a problem. And so I have tried my darndest to make sure that we can get the system right at County Line Square. This entire process, in my opinion, was to address what some people perceive to be a problem at the north end of County Line Square, where Capri has been an amazing success in this village. It was a restaurant prior to that, prior to, Gigi, you're here, 05? Prior to 05, how many people in the audience remember going to restaurants in that location? I remember at least 2. Failed. Gigi and Capri have been nothing but a success. He then, on his own, because of this valet situation and parking problems, the way this is constructed at the north end of County Line Square, voluntarily went and made a deal with the Pace Lot to try to use the Pace Lot at night. I've been encouraging him to make sure his valet does that, and generally they have been doing it. He also voluntarily made his employees park in the Pace Lot after 5 o'clock at night. He has tried to rectify the problem. There is a parking problem. Many of you know that when the Village Center was being proposed, I went to many meetings along with many board members at the time, and we wanted a parking problem. People wanted to know what we were going to do with the traffic and the parking, because we need a parking problem to show vitality in a village. You should not be penalized because you're successful. You should comply with the laws. We are doing that. This valet ordinance is unnecessary, is an overreach by government, and should be deleted from the code. That said, should the problem continue at the north end of County Line Square, should it occur at Topaz, should it occur at Eddie Merlot's, or any place else in the village, and this board thinks it needs a valet ordinance to control that, I will be the first to put it on the agenda. But for this, I hope you will all vote to delete Chapter 21, the valet operators ordinance, from the village code. Thank you. Anyone else?
Have a motion?
Sure.
So I
Trustee Schiappa.
motion to approve the ordinance amending the Burr Ridge Municipal Code by deleting Chapter 1 entitled Valet Operators.
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call starting at consent, please.
Trustee Chiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Model?
No.
4-1, the ordinance passes. Thank you for your support. That takes us to resolutions A. A resolution supporting additional legislation reducing the ambient concentrations of ethylene oxide.
Yes. I'd like to introduce Evan Walter to present this, and also Trustee Guy Francis, Chairman of the Environmental Quality Commission. The EQC met last Thursday, May 9th, and made a recommendation to further amend our resolution supporting the additional legislation reducing ambient concentrations of ethylene oxide in the area. And I'll let Evan explain in further detail.
Thank you, Village Administrator. As stated, the EQC has previously put forward a recommendation for board consideration, which was approved at the last meeting, for a resolution supporting markup to certain legislative language in the Illinois General Assembly regarding ethylene oxide emissions here in the state of Illinois. On their May 9th meeting, just this past Thursday, the EQC continued its review of the legislation. They made several additional recommendations to legislation that has been proposed in the ILGA and is pending at this time. Those markups were forwarded for your review and are in resolution format at this time. If there are any questions about the markup itself or the process that they undertook, I'd be happy to answer those questions for you.
Are there any trustees that have questions? Is there anyone in the audience that has questions about this very important topic? I have a comment in the nature of questions, I suppose. You've been on top of this the whole time, Evan. Thank you for all of your hard work. You and Doug have kept the village very well informed. I'd like to know, and I'm sure the trustees would like to know, if you can figure it out in Springfield, when the bill is going to get to where it's going to get, and whether or not there'll be any more hearings. I'm sure the Stop Scary Gyms people will want to, and they will know too. I foresee at least 1 or 2 trips down to Springfield by the communities around here, and as mayor and also on behalf of the board of trustees, please keep us well informed so that if anybody's schedule allows him or her to go, that we're able to do that, okay?
Certainly, and absolutely no problem to keep on top of this. I believe the central question is, what does the timeline look for enacting legislation here in the state? I would say it's upon us. The end of session is May 31st, and it's May 13th today, so we're really looking at 2.5 more weeks till the end of session. It's that last Friday. I think if I have that right, whatever that week is, that day is the month. We are past the rulemaking point where committee hearings basically occur. Anything that has not been approved out of final committee has been enacted by Rule 19 of the Illinois House and Senate to be sent back to the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is really kind of a clearinghouse. They make special dispensations. They're a bit like the Plan Commission of the ILGA, where they make recommendations in special circumstances as to what to do regarding legislation. As of this time, nothing has passed both houses and is on the governor's signature. That means we need at least one more house, either the House to vote on something or the Senate to vote on something, to actually get something to Governor Pritzker's desk. How it gets there is a bit more complicated. At this point, we're waiting for legislation really to come through, for amendment language to come out, either from Representative Durkin's office, Senator Curran's office, Senator Bush's office, who represents Lake County. And once that comes through, I'm confident that this legislation will move quickly through whichever representative House or Senate that legislation corresponds with. I think, as we're all aware, Senator Curran's had 2 bills be approved by the Senate by a unanimous margin. Those are Senate Bills 1852 and 1854. Those get at things like notification requirements as well as fugitive emissions that deal with specifically ethylene oxide. We have had House Bill 1841, which is, to you, might be known as the Mount Holler Act, the gentleman who passed away from the community a few weeks ago. That bill has not been taken up by the House at this time, other than through a committee process. So it's a bit hard to know exactly how it'll break, because we don't think we have truly final language in front of us at this time. My understanding, and any of the stop group who would like to add to this, I would certainly welcome their insight as well. My understanding is that we are waiting on some sort of agreement to be reached between some of the senators and some of the representatives on specific points in the legislation, those being the amount of ethylene oxide that is able to be reduced, or to be stored within a certain distance of a public facility or residence, as well as what is defined really as fugitive emissions. The defining factor of how we, A, test for fugitive emissions, and B, basically define baseline levels of ETO are subject to ongoing discussions.
Thank you. And for the public, you've got some great representatives that are speaking for you down in Springfield. Senator John Curran is really carrying the water here, and you should let him know how important this is. It's not to say he doesn't know how important it is, but keep calling his office so that he's able to say to his colleagues, I'm getting calls from my community. Same thing with Jim Durkin, and same thing with Representative Mizaki. What's the term? Light up? Light up somebody's phone? What is it? Blow up. considerations, 8A, update regarding stereogenics in Willowbrook, Illinois. Oh, we got a resolution? I'm sorry, thank you, I'm rusty. Can I get a motion to adopt the resolution proclaiming resolution supporting additional legislation reducing ambient concentration of ethylene oxide?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. That'll take us to considerations 8A, an update regarding stereogenics in Willowbrook, Illinois.
We could take A and B together. A is really, on each agenda, we have this on every agenda. We've had it on every agenda since August of 2018 when this issue came to light. This particular agenda, we have two other matters, and those matters constitute the update on on what's going on and what the village is doing on the stereogenics issue. I will just say in summary that then Mayor-elect Grasso, now Mayor Grasso, and the mayors of Darien, Willowbrook, Indian Head Park, and Hinsdale sent a letter, no settlement letter, urging the Attorney General and the DuPage State's Attorney not to enter into any kind of settlement with stereogenics that would allow them to use ethylene oxide in the Burr Ridge area or in any way lift the seal order. That was sent last week. Also, the EQC, our Environmental Quality Commission, met last week, and the resolution you just considered and the matter that Evan's about to go into, the recommendation to hire lobbyists, were the outcomes of that EQC meeting. So I will turn it over to Evan to talk about the recommendation of the EQC to hire a lobbyist.
Thank you, Village Administrator. Again, this is consideration item 8B. It's a recommendation to hire a lobbyist. This has actually been twice considered by the EQC at this point, first at their April 9th committee meeting and second last Thursday at their May 9th committee meeting. This is a recommendation that the village hire a consultant lobbyist to represent the village in lobbying for any and all pending legislation in the ILGA this session. Through my contacts down in Springfield, I've been able to talk to a gentleman through Dave Sullivan and Rauchy Strategies, based in Park Ridge. Again, they've been recommended by the IEC, the Illinois Environmental Council, who's been working with me to help get a lot of this stuff together and transmit information back to you. Mr. Sullivan has shared some personal stories with me about how stereogenics has actually personally affected his life. He thinks his brother, who lived in Willowbrook and has since passed away from cancer, was, in his words, killed by stereogenics, quite literally. So I know in talking with him in several iterations that this is an important issue for him. He still has a job to do, but he has shared very intimate details about how this particular political issue has affected him on a personal level. The draft contract proposed to represent the village would be through the end of session, May 31st, for a one-time fee of $10,000. He has stated that if this does go past May 31st, which it could, it's unlikely to, but it could, he would represent the village on a $5,000 per month basis for as many months as we deem necessary. The recommendation before you is for a not to exceed amount of $15,000, meaning that we wouldn't just have a contract rolling forever if you didn't want it to. But at the same time, the recommendation from the EQC is that the board enter into an agreement with Rauchy and Sullivan Strategies at a cost of $10,000 for the end of this month, and then an additional $5,000 until the end of June. That being said, I'll be happy to answer any other questions or provide any other details you might need in considering this matter.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Yes, Al?
On hiring a lobbyist, of the villages that are involved, are we the only one that's contemplating hiring a lobbyist?
I would say that is accurate, yes.
I didn't pick up all of it, but why, I know lobbyists can do the job, but, why are we the only village? We're always in communication with the other villages where they've decided they didn't need a lobbyist.
I think that has been succinctly the attitude of other towns, is that they felt like it was not necessary. However, this is the recommendation that came down from the EQC based on their discussions of the last two meetings. So I would say your statements are entirely accurate, yes.
Just let me put a footnote to that. I was
Yes, that was Trustee Stifler. Just for the record, for everybody's enlightenment, Trustee Stifler is the person in the Hinsdale Board of Trustees who's representing the village on this particular item, not President Cawley.
Right, and just so you know why President Cawley has a conflict.
Certainly.
That's why, when you see the letter, which is part of the packet 8A, the trustee from the village of Hinsdale signed it. That isn't to mean the mayor wouldn't not, but he has a conflict. Hinsdale's behind this. I had met with then Mayor-elect Joe Marchese from Darien and with Frank Trilla, and we decided we would put a letter together. I did draft this letter for all of their approval, and they signed it, and I think they all agree that a lobbyist certainly would be a help. I think it is the position of the Environmental Quality Commission that that's the recommendation to this board. Certainly we know this village wants this to happen. And I think that by hiring a lobbyist, even though we have to be frugal with our funds, but if we maybe get half of it paid for by Hinsdale, that would help. Continues to send a message. There's only 2 weeks to go. I think somebody at your commission meeting said we don't want to leave any stone unturned. And so while we should be frugal with our money, again, there's nothing more important than the public health. And that is the recommendation from the commission, and I think we should go along with that. Yes, Trustee Francis.
So yes, you are correct. One of the commissioners, Jennifer, said we should leave no stone unturned. We don't want to have 6 months from now have an opportunity on the table and then dismiss that opportunity, and then something goes south on us and this settlement, there's a settlement, or the seal order is lifted, or some other legislation fails. So this is going to make sure we have made every possible opportunity to oppose ethylene oxide being used in our community. Another point that was made, the American Chemical Society, the Ethylene Oxide Manufacturers Association, the sterilization people, they all have lobbyists running around down in Springfield, and they know who to talk to, and they know what buttons to press, and they know all of that, and we don't have that on our side. The Stop Sterigenics people don't have that. Evan's down there for us doing a tremendous job. Doug's down there doing a tremendous job for us. But they're kind of feeling their way around. They kind of know who to talk to, but these lobbyists, they know exactly who to talk to and use their time most efficiently to get our points across. So we felt we should be on the same playing field with those other associations. And that's another reason why it was recommended.
And you always want somebody on your team that's got personal stake in the matter. And I was sad to hear Mr. Sullivan's plight with his family, but who could be a better lobbyist for us in a short period of time and want to devote the energy necessary to push this forward? I think Mr. Sullivan's a good choice for us. Anyone else?
Trustee Mennel.
Well, mostly it's been answered. You know, I agree with but thank you. Yeah, I agree with the point that, you know, we should leave no stone unturned, and I do agree that, you know, lobbyists could be helpful. I think in this case, you know, we've got a great group of people that have been, you've advanced this. Lobbyists, you know, the industry is using a lobbyist because they don't have such a great group of advocacy, such a great group of people. You've raised the attention, you've done this, but I hear the point of leaving no stone unturned, and so that was my primary question. My secondary question was, you know, why this lobbyist? And it seems like this is recommended by the, you know, Illinois, you know, the EQC. Does this person have the right relationships? Because I do agree, using a lobbyist is all about the relationships. Do we feel that this person has the appropriate relationships? Do we look at any other lobbyists, or you know, that was my primary question.
There were 2 lobbyists proposed.
Okay.
This one seemed to be able to hit the ground running, get the biggest bang for the buck, and could deliver for us, we felt. It was unanimously agreed to by the Environmental Quality Commission.
Steve Francis, was the recommendation unanimous?
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, then we need a motion, or we just need consensus? We need a motion
I'll make a motion to approve hiring the lobbyist for, per the Environmental Quality Commission's recommendation for an unlimited term for a fee not to exceed $15,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Model?
Yes?
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Scalpa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
5-0,
5-0.
the motion passes. Louder, louder. It's all about being heard. Okay, item 8R, other considerations for announcement, deliberation, and/or discussion only. No official action will be taken. Anyone? Yes, Trustee Francis.
On May 29th, there will be a public forum, another public forum on ethylene oxide. This time will be held at the Burr Ridge Marriott Hotel. We will have information posted on the village website, directing those folks. There'll be tabletop discussions from 1 to 5 p.m. and then a host of speakers, question and answer session, and such from 7 p.m. till 9-ish something. If we could get that on the website sooner rather than later, because there's a particular format to go through if you want to ask a question and get that question on the question list, which is very important. So.
Good. And again, turnout is crucial. The demands on the trustees' times are precious, but if any of you can make it, we're all trying to show the flag, so to speak.
And Trustee, I'm sorry,
No.
Mr. Mayor,
Nope.
Evan Walter has
There we
something to add.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, the email address, if you'd like to submit a question, eto@epa.gov. Send anything you like there and someone will read it off, eto@epa.gov.
And let me bring up one other point in this matter, because the public has been following this very closely. I did attend the court session last week in DuPage County on the status hearing. The word settlement was never used. I know everybody worries about that. I can just tell you as a litigator that the word settlement is always used in cases. That doesn't mean your attorney general or your state's attorney in DuPage is at all considering lifting that seal order. It's just something a judge will always encourage parties to discuss matters. However, this judge, Judge Fullerton, did not even bring that topic up. One of the good things that did happen recently is that I asked counsel to put forward our petition to intervene and get it on the court's docket so that it can be heard and that Burr Ridge can formally be a party to the case, and we can then get all the discovery. The judge agreed with that, and now that's being briefed. Stereogenics has a right to object, and then the judge is likely to rule in about 60 days. Did we ever get they didn't have an actual date. Did they finally give us a date?
July 18th.
July 18th. So some of you, I could see, were there last week. Put it on your calendars, July 18th. Believe me, judges take notice who's in the courtroom also. So July 18th at 9 a.m., Judge Fullerton, DuPage County Courthouse. I think it's 2005, right? Okay. Any other considerations? Anybody else on the board? That takes us to 9, resident comments. Any resident comments on anything? No. 10, any non-resident comments? 11, reports and communications from village officials. Yes.
Just wanted to make a few announcements. We're entering the fun and busy season for Burr Ridge. Janet Kowal, our public relations and communications coordinator, can attest to that. It's the beginning of event season, and this week is kind of the kickoff. Mayor Mickey talked about Armed Services Day on Saturday. It's a very special event. I encourage residents, village staff, everyone to attend. The Veterans Committee just does a phenomenal job in putting that together. And for me, that's the highlight of the year in terms of events for this village, and there are many great events. Also, this week is Bike to Work Week, and we encourage people to bike to work this week. We approved a proclamation earlier this evening. In fact, on Friday, some of our employees will be riding their bikes to work, so we'll take a picture of that and get it out for everybody. And then, of course, Memorial Day is coming up, and the Village Hall will be closed on Memorial Day, and then June 1st is Run the Ridge, 5K race, walk and run race in downtown Burr Ridge. Then the concert season starts on June 14th, which Janet is very busily preparing for our concert season, so thank you. I just wanted to get the word out on the events and the exciting summer coming up in Burr Ridge.
Well, thank you, Doug. You've taken most of my topics
I'm
away, so
sorry.
that's good. That's good. I will remind the public of one more thing, two more things, actually. 2 weeks from today is Memorial Day. That's the day we honor all of our servicemen and women that have given their lives for the freedoms we enjoy and the rights that we have in this nation. And so put that on your calendar, and whatever you're doing that day, at least take a moment of your time to remember those that have given their lives for the defense of this country. Because 2 weeks from tonight is Memorial Day, this board will meet on Tuesday, the 28th, May 28th. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn to May 28th,
So moved.
2019 at 7 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That